Today I'd like to talk to you and answer one of the questions that went on in the blog this week. Is about around communication. One spouse didn't feel like they could speak into the other person's life. They didn't feel like they were heard or respected in what they had to say, and it's just frustrating in the communications. They ask me, how do we do this? How do we get past this? And I have an answer that a colleague gave to me years ago that facilitated and helped me even with my son. So if you've got children, especially teenagers or college students and so forth, where they're so full of their own thinking that it's hard to get anything to them, and we as parents just struggle to want to help them out and to tell them shortcuts so that they don't go through the same things we did growing up. But that doesn't seem to work very well. What I'd like to offer you this morning is a concept that really has helped me in understanding how to communicate to someone like my son and get him to learn to think and to work through, find his own answers in life. I'm not going to be around for a long time. I'm probably not around with him a whole lot today as he makes decisions. He's off in school and graduate school, so he's doing his thing, and Dad's not around oftentimes to ask questions, and he's independent, so he doesn't always do that. But when he does, or when my spouse does, and she's asking me, or I'm asking her, some of the times I have the tendency to want to answer right away. It's just my go-to. I want to tell him right away. So one of the things that I suggest doing here is what was suggested to me is that the concept is a lot of times the ideas are so full, the head is so full with their own thinking, their own ideas and so forth, that it's hard to hear and process what you've got to say. So here's a technique that would help you. It's hard to do. It's been really hard for me anyway to try to work through this, but I'm going to give you this tool and see if you can go with it. One of the things you do is that if you can make room here, then your idea of what you want to share will fit. Right now, there's just not enough room to go in there. So one of the things that I recommend is that start off by, I've got 5 questions that you could ask to help empty out the thoughts. Maybe they find their own wisdom, and that's in the long run what you really want. The first one would be this. Tell me what you thought of so far. So as they begin to tell you some of the things they thought of, they begin to empty out their own thoughts and their own ideas. They begin to make room in that head of theirs, their thinking, that mindset that they have, that perspective, for some other room, for some other ideas. The second one would be, what have you heard from others? If it's a child, it what have you heard from a teacher, or a professor, or a colleague, or friend? If it's your spouse, what have you heard from your friends? Or what have you heard from your sponsor? What have you heard from your therapist? Begin to find out what are some other things out there that they've been listening to or what they've been hearing from others. It may stop right there. They may say, oh, that's what I need to do. If not, then ask them a third question. If the conversation is moving along, then say, the third one is, what have you found out from your own research? What have you done? Now, what are you trying to do? Is say, are you just trying to, what are you doing to find your answers yourself? As a child, and this is really important, my mom used to say, because I was always full of questions, well, Mom, what about this? Or how do I do that? She would say, oh, you drive me crazy with all these questions. Go look it up in the encyclopedia. We didn't have Google back then. Today, there's Google. I mean, you can tell your child to go look it up on Google or YouTube, and they answer just about anything. So they go and they do some of their research. So that's a huge one there as they begin to find out what else is out there and available. You're teaching them, and you're also allowing that spouse of yours to kind of do some thinking on their own or some research on their own. So there's other people out there in this universe that are giving feedback to them other than just you. Oftentimes we're real receptive to our parents or to our spouses up front. Now the fourth one would be, is there a time in your life where you have faced something similar to this? And if you had, what have you learned from that? What did your experience teach you? Now you're reaching back and helping them reach into their own wisdom. You're encouraging and facilitating their process of insight. They're looking at themselves and saying, let me think this thing through. That's what you want in the long run. You don't want to run around mothering or fathering a spouse or constantly trying to be a parent to a child. Let them grow up. Now, they go in there and they start pulling more stuff out. They begin to say, well, this is what I learned, or this is what I did this and it didn't work well. Okay, then they take that off the table. Now, you get down to the fourth one. The fifth one would be is that if a friend came up to you and ask you, somebody in your recovery group or colleague or peer or friend, someone in school, came up and asked you the same question that you just asked me, what would your answer be? And so they begin, come on now, tell me, what would you think? I mean, this is a friend you care about. If you ask them this, what would they tell you? Now, you're reaching in and asking them to give wisdom to somebody else. So you bring a third party in, it further detaches it from you. So they're reaching in all their universe around them for all the answers and so forth that's going on. Now, quite possibly at this point, they've discovered the answer to their problem or the dilemma. They've gained the insight. They have seen what they need to see. My suggestion would be this, is that if they have, and they may say good, and they go off and run it. If they don't, and you say, then you open up the doors and you say, are you open to an experience that I've had and a thought that I have about what you've asked? Something that I've experienced in life? At this point, there's room in here for your great idea. Maybe it's an experience you learned. Maybe it was something that you went through in your own life and you learned the outcome, either the negative or positively, that it didn't work well or it did work well for you. There's room here for that thought. Now, in that whole deal, you've asked permission at the end. Would you be open to something that I've experienced? Now, you're coming out of your life. You're coming out of your mistakes. You're coming out of your wisdom that you've learned the hard way. And you share, this is what I did and this is what I learned. It totally diffuses this whole thing of feeling like someone is so self-righteous and know-it-all, tells me everything to do. It suddenly dissipates all that. And it opens up for you an opportunity to have heard and to listen and to show interest and care about what someone else has thought, and then to turn around and give that same out of your own life experience, your wisdom. I would say 9 times out of 10, that person, that child, that spouse is going to be far more open to listening to you and what you have to say if you go through something similar to this. I've experienced this. It's hard to do. I have to keep that card with me at times, remind myself what I'm about to do. And when I do, my son walks away a bit taller, a bit more confident in the fact that he had thought through all of this stuff. What I've really done is I've empowered my son to navigate life a little more wiser on his own. My spouse, I have shown respect, compassion, listening, understanding, care, interest, and they're more open to what I have to say when I have done that. Thank you.